I swear. The first clue wasn't her perfume lingering too long or her sudden obsession with yoga pants. It was a laugh. Not a real laugh. God, I would have killed for one of those again. But that fake, brittle giggle she started using on her phone late at night. The kind that sounded like it had been reheated in the microwave too many times. One Thursday evening, I came home from work carrying groceries. I heard it before I even opened the door. That laugh, followed by a pause. Then her whisper, sugar dripping in a way I hadn't heard in years. When I stepped inside, she was perched on the couch, phone pressed to her ear, face tilted toward the ceiling like a teenager smitten with the quarterback. "Oh, you're bad," she purred, then turned and spotted me. "Gotta go," she blurted, snapping the phone shut like I was some school principal who'd caught her. I didn't say anything. Not then. I just set the bags down and asked, calm as you like, "Did you remember to get milk this morning?" She nodded too quickly, like her head was on ball bearings. See, that's the thing about me. She always said I was slow, too patient, never passionate enough. But patience isn't weakness, it's strategy. And in that moment, while she thought she'd dodged a bullet, I already had the entire battlefield mapped out in my head. Later that night, when she fell asleep on the couch with her phone clutched to her chest, I synced it to the family iPad. She'd never notice. Tech, to her, was just plugs and chargers. To me, it was leverage. That's when the pattern began to emerge. Tuesday dinners that didn't match her work calendar. Midday hotel selfies stamped with locations I knew she hadn't mentioned. And messages, sweet, syrupy ones, dripping with the kind of affection she hadn't spared for me in years. "You make me feel alive again, face blowing a kiss," she wrote. His reply, a shirtless mirror selfie in a hotel bathroom. Recognized the wallpaper instantly. Burstone Hotel. Same one she once called too tacky for us. I didn't rage. I didn't even lose sleep. I just opened the oak box in my desk, the one I'd carved myself years ago, meant for cufflinks. It was empty then. It wouldn't stay empty for long. Because if she wanted a game, I was already a step ahead. The thing about cheaters, they think they're masterminds. Every late-night text, every client dinner, every sudden urge to start jogging at 10 p.m. with makeup on. They believe it's all invisible. But patterns don't lie. And I've spent my entire career catching flaws in patterns so tiny they'd make most people cross-eyed. Take her training retreats. Twice a month, apparently mandatory for her career in real estate. I didn't even need to snoop that hard. A friend of hers, Celeste, accidentally CC'd her on an email about another fun weekend at Ridge Hill. Ridge Hill, not a seminar hall, not a training center, a cabin resort. The kind of place you book when you're trying to make bad decisions in flannel pajamas. So I printed it, neatly, slid it into the oak box. Then there were the texts. She thought she was clever, deleting them. What she didn't know was that the family iPad still had her messages backed up. She'd hand that iPad to guests for Netflix marathons, completely unaware that her little love notes were being stored there like a diary with neon tabs. One of them still sticks with me. I needed that last night. Let's do a quick lunch before I head home. Timestamp, 1:42 p.m. Her story to me? "Sorry I'm late. The board meeting dragged on." And the guy? A contractor I once hired to fix our deck. I'd given him a beer. Asked about his family. He'd thank me like I was his big brother. Turns out he was just casing the place. That was the night she wandered into the kitchen in her smug little robe, pretending to be affectionate. "You didn't say good night," she said, feigning concern. I smiled at her. "I figured you were tired of touching me." Her eyes blinked fast. For a second, I saw panic flicker. But then she shrugged. "You're being dramatic." Dramatic? Sure. Meanwhile, my oak box was starting to fill. Email chains, text threads, hotel receipts. Each piece carefully cataloged, dated, labeled. Not because I needed to convince myself. No, because I knew that when I finally moved, I'd need more than anger. I'd need evidence. So while she thought I was buffering through life, dull and oblivious, I was quietly building a case. One brick at a time. It started with little slips on her end. The kind liars make when they start getting too comfortable. One evening she waltzed into the living room, glass of wine in hand, and dropped casually, "Celeste and I are trying that new Italian place tomorrow night. Girls' night." Funny, because 30 minutes earlier, I'd seen her reservation confirmation from OpenTable pop up on the sync calendar. 2 guests. Dinner for 2 at the Burstone. Again, I didn't correct her. just smiled and said, "Have fun." She tilted her head, searching my face for suspicion. She found none, because I wasn't about to give her the satisfaction of thinking she was clever. The game worked better when she thought I was still playing checkers while I was quietly moving rooks and bishops. The next morning, I slipped a copy of that reservation into the oak box. Beside it, I placed screenshots of her texts from the night before. The ones that read, "I'll wear the red dress. The one you like." Followed by his response, a wolf emoji. By now, the oak box wasn't just evidence. It was a blueprint. And the more I studied it, the clearer it became. She didn't just want to fling. She wanted to build a new life while I was still holding up the old one. She came home from that girls' night, smelling faintly of lavender soap and cheap hotel champagne. The Range Rover headlights swept across the driveway at 11:17 p.m. sharp, as if punctuality might cover the stench of betrayal. "How was dinner?" I asked as she slipped off her heels. "Fine." Celeste had too much Prosecco. She yawned dramatically, like she'd just finished a Broadway show. "Uh-huh." I leaned in slightly. "Hope you tipped well." Her eyes froze for a split second. Just a flicker. But I caught it. People like her always underestimate the quiet ones. Later that week, she grew bolder. She left her laptop open on the counter, inbox half visible. And there it was, an email thread with the contractor. He'd signed off with "yours, always." She saw me glance at it and snapped the screen shut like a bear trap. "Don't snoop," she snapped. I smiled. I wasn't. "But thanks for confirming there's something to find." Her mouth opened, closed. Then she stomped off like a teenager caught sneaking vodka. What she didn't know was that the oak box now had more than enough for me to crush her in court, in public, or in whatever arena she thought she controlled. But I wasn't going to rush it. No, rushing was her style. Mine was precision. And I was just getting warmed up. If there's one thing cheaters hate, it's silence. Silence makes them itch. They thrive on chaos, arguments, tears, theatrics. That's their oxygen. Without it, they suffocate. So that became my weapon of choice. I let her keep talking, kept smiling when she slipped in those half-truths. Every time she threw a little jab, "You've gotten boring. Why don't you ever surprise me anymore?" I just nodded like she was right. But inside, I was lining up dominoes. The first domino was financial. She thought the joint account was her playground. Hair appointments, surprise Amazon packages, little business dinners that always rang up in pairs. I didn't stop her. Not yet. Instead, I opened a second account, routed my paycheck into it, and left just enough in the old one to keep her from smelling smoke. Every dollar she blew was, in my head, another receipt stapled inside the oak box. The second domino was digital. I'd already synced her phone to the iPad, but I wanted more. So, one night while she was in the shower, I borrowed her thumbprint. Easy, just a sleeping hand pressed gently against my phone's scanner. 2 minutes later, I had access to her email, her cloud, her photos. She had no idea. The sheer volume of stupidity amazed me. Screenshots of hotel confirmations. Pictures of him shirtless, her grinning like she'd won the lottery. One message that read, "I wish he'd just leave already. I feel like my real life is waiting for me in your arms." He, of course, was me. The placeholder. The dull one. The man who bought the Range Rover, the granite countertops, the little vacation cottage she loved showing off on Instagram. I was the scaffolding she planned to abandon once the new structure looked stable. That night, as she scrolled TikTok in bed, I whispered, "You ever think about what you'd do if one of us cheated?" She didn't even look up. "You? Please. You don't have the imagination for it." I smiled. Maybe not. But if I did, I wouldn't scream. I'd just make sure the other person never saw it coming. She laughed. Actually laughed. "You're so dramatic." Then she rolled over and fell asleep, still giggling. She thought she was winning. The third domino was social. People underestimate networks, friends, co-workers, neighbors. But people talk, especially when they drink. So I started listening closer at barbecues and work parties. I noticed how Celeste always looked away when I asked about those girls' nights. How the contractor got stiff around me, like he'd swallowed a wasp. How Vanessa, the assistant at her office, kept slipping me nervous smiles, the kind that said, "I know something I shouldn't." One night, at a charity auction, I finally caught the thread. Vanessa leaned in after 2 glasses of wine and whispered, "You're a good man. Better than she deserves." Then she flushed red and walked away before I could respond. I didn't chase her. Didn't need to. The confirmation was enough. By then, the oak box was almost full. It wasn't just evidence anymore, it was insurance. A policy against every smug smirk, every careless lie. And I was ready to start nudging dominoes. The first nudge came at dinner. Just the two of us, steak and wine on a Friday night. She'd insisted on quality time. Translation, guilt management. Halfway through her glass, she leaned across the table and sighed. I feel like we've been distant. Don't you think? I cut my steak calmly. Not distant. Just different. She tilted her head, studying me. Different how? Well, I said, taking a sip. I know where you were last Tuesday. And it wasn't a board meeting. Her fork froze midair. Eyes flicked. A tiny twitch in her jaw gave her away. Then, just like that, the mask slid back on. She laughed. What are you talking about? The birthstone. Room 214. Wolf emoji. I said it casually, like I was commenting on the weather. Her wineglass clinked as she set it down too quickly. You're crazy. Maybe, I said, smiling. But I'm also thorough. She pushed back from the table, anger rising like steam. You went through my phone, didn't you? God, you're pathetic. Funny, I said. That's the exact word you used to describe me in your messages to him. Silence. Heavy. She opened her mouth, closed it, then grabbed her purse and stormed off toward the bedroom. I didn't follow. I just cut another piece of steak and chewed slowly, savoring it like victory. That night, she didn't speak to me. The next morning, she pretended nothing happened, whistling in the kitchen, humming along to the radio. But her eyes were sharper now, darting to me like she was trying to gauge how much I knew. The beauty of it was, she couldn't tell. Was I bluffing? Did I have one message or 100? That uncertainty ate at her more than any confrontation could. Over the next week, I turned the screws tighter. Subtle things. I'd drop a casual, hope you enjoyed the red dress, just as she was leaving for yoga. Or, when she got home late, I'd ask, did Celeste pick the hotel, or did he? Always calm, always smiling. She started drinking more wine, snapping at small things, forgetting her cover stories. The cracks were widening. And then came the move she never saw coming. I invited her parents for dinner. Lovely couple, salt-of-the-earth types who still thought their daughter was the star she painted herself to be. Halfway through dessert, I said casually, funny thing, I found a hotel receipt in Vanessa's name the other day. Right, honey? Her spoon clattered against the plate. Her parents looked at her, confused. She stammered something about a client outing, but her father frowned. Vanessa? Isn't she your assistant? Why would she book your hotel? I smiled, sipping my coffee. Great question. The color drained from her face. She excused herself from the table, muttering something about work emails. Her parents exchanged looks, suspicion already growing. That was the beauty of precision. I didn't need to scream. I just needed to plant seeds. Seeds of doubt in her allies, seeds of fear in her own head. When she came back, I pretended nothing had happened. Kept the conversation light, cheerful. But I saw it in her eyes, the panic. The realization that the walls weren't just closing in. They were already touching her shoulders. Later that night, as she brushed her teeth, she glared at me in the mirror. You're trying to destroy me. I smiled. No, you're doing that yourself. I'm just keeping the receipts. She spat into the sink, slammed the toothbrush down, and stormed out of the bathroom. Me? I finished flossing. Because revenge, like dental hygiene, works best when done patiently, every day, without skipping steps. And trust me, by the time I was done, she wasn't just going to lose. She was going to wonder if she ever truly had the upper hand at all. The oak box wasn't just a container anymore. It had become a weapon. Every time I added another piece of paper, another screenshot, I could feel the balance of power shifting. She thought she was juggling fire while I was staring at my shoes. Truth was, I was building a fire extinguisher big enough to put out her whole circus. The real fun began when I started setting traps. Not physical ones, psychological. Because a liar's greatest weakness isn't their secrets. It's their belief that they're smarter than you. One Thursday, I left my laptop open on the kitchen counter while I took a call in the other room. On the screen was a draft email to my lawyer, half-typed, with phrases like division of assets and full custody consideration. It wasn't real. Not yet. But when she passed through the kitchen, I heard the subtle intake of breath. She lingered a little too long. When I returned, the screen had been minimized. I didn't mention it. I just smiled. And that smile burned in her head all evening. Later, she finally snapped. Why were you emailing a lawyer? Was I? I asked, pretending confusion. Her nostrils flared. I saw it. I chuckled. Funny. I thought you were too busy at your board meetings to notice what I do at home. She stormed off, muttering under her breath. I poured myself a bourbon and let her stew. The cracks widened faster after that. She started watching me instead of hiding herself, checking my expressions, double-guessing my silences. And the more she watched, the more mistakes she made. One Friday night, she slipped on that infamous red dress, the one he begged her to wear in those texts, and told me she was off to wine night with Celeste. Nice dress for wine, I said, tying my tie in the mirror. She froze. What do you mean? Nothing. I straightened the tie, calm as a surgeon. Just that red always photographs well. Her lips parted, but no words came. She walked out the door 5 minutes later, but I knew she'd spend the whole night wondering if I was watching. I wasn't. I didn't need to. Paranoia was doing the heavy lifting. Meanwhile, I turned my attention to her support system. The people she thought were allies, friends, co-workers, even family. If she was going to fall, I wanted an audience. Vanessa, her assistant, was first. She'd already cracked once at the charity auction, so I stopped by her office under the pretense of dropping off lunch for my wife. When Vanessa smiled nervously, I said casually, "Funny, isn't it? How many hotel reservations run through your inbox?" Her face drained. I don't know what you mean." "Sure you do," I said, lowering my voice. "But relax. I'm not angry at you. You're just doing your job. I just think someday, when lawyers ask, you'll want to be very precise in your answers." I left her with that thought buzzing in her head. No threats, no demands, just a seed. Seeds grow. Next came her parents. Remember the hotel receipt I'd mentioned at dinner? That wasn't a one-off. A week later, I accidentally left another document sitting on the entryway table. A credit card bill with multiple birthstone charges. When her mother came by to drop off a pie, she spotted it. I didn't rush to hide it. Just let her take it in. She didn't say anything to me directly. But 2 days later, my wife came storming into the kitchen, red-faced. "Did you show my mom our credit card bill?" I looked up from my newspaper. Why would I do that? Because she called me asking about hotel charges. I shrugged. Maybe she just reads upside down better than most. The vein in her forehead pulsed. She screamed something about invasion of privacy, but I just sipped my coffee. She couldn't prove anything. And that was the point. Doubt is more dangerous than proof. By now, she was unraveling. She started hiding her phone in ridiculous places, inside flower containers, behind couch cushions, like I hadn't already pulled every backup file into my cloud. She'd pace the kitchen at midnight, snapping at me if I so much as asked about the weather. And me? I stayed calm. Too calm. The calmer I stayed, the crazier she looked. One night she confronted me outright. "I know what you're doing." I tilted my head. "Do you? You're trying to make me paranoid. You want me to admit something I haven't done." "Interesting." I leaned closer. "So tell me, what haven't you done?" Her mouth opened, then closed. She stormed off again, muttering curses. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. The oak box was nearly full now. Email threads, credit card bills, screenshots, even a timeline I'd sketched out like a detective mapping a crime. It looked obsessive, but it wasn't. It was meticulous. Because when I finally played my hand, there wouldn't be any holes she could slip through. The final piece came courtesy of Celeste herself. Turns out, even best friends have limits. She called me one afternoon, voice low, like she was sneaking a call during confession. "I can't cover for her anymore," she whispered. "She's making me lie to my husband too." I let her spill. Every dinner, every weekend getaway, every carefully crafted excuse. She thought she was venting. What she didn't realize was that every word was another nail in the coffin. "Thanks, Celeste," I said when she finally paused. "That clears up a lot." She sighed with relief. "I just hope she doesn't find out I told you." "She won't," I assured her. "Not until it's too late." That evening, my wife floated into the living room, feigning normalcy. "Want to watch something?" she asked, settling beside me with a bowl of popcorn. "Sure," I said, flipping through channels. "But first, quick question. How's Celeste's husband doing? He still believes she's covering for you." The popcorn bowl slipped. Kernels scattered across the rug. "What did you say?" "You heard me." Her eyes darted, desperate, searching for a foothold. But there wasn't one. I patted her knee. "Don't worry. You'll have plenty of time to explain eventually." She didn't sleep that night. I did. 8 straight hours, snoring peacefully. Because the game was already over. She just hadn't realized how completely she'd lost. And that was the beauty of being one step ahead. While she scrambled to plug leaks in her sinking ship, I was already building the lifeboat and choosing exactly when to set it afloat. She thought she was playing chess, but I wasn't her opponent. I was the board. And soon, she'd learn what it felt like when the board collapses. There's a moment cheaters always face, though most don't recognize it when it comes. The moment they stop controlling the game and start reacting to it. That was where she was now. Every step she took, every excuse she tried, I was already there waiting. Like a magician palming the card before she even picked it, I knew what she'd say before she said it. The paranoia was eating her alive. She started hiding receipts, deleting apps, even switching to handwritten notes with her contractor. Cute. She thought she'd outsmarted me. One afternoon, I came home to find her hunched over the kitchen counter, scribbling something on a piece of paper before shoving it into her purse. When she noticed me, she plastered on that fake grin. "You're home early," she chirped, like the notes of a song out of key. Traffic was light. I glanced at her purse. Writing a grocery list? She laughed too loud. "Yeah, just, milk, bread, eggs." I leaned against the counter. "Don't forget honesty. Seems like we're running low." Her smile faltered. For a heartbeat, I thought she might actually collapse under the weight of it all. But no. She straightened, rolled her eyes, and muttered, "You're impossible." She was right. For her, I was. But patience has a purpose, and mine was nearly at its end. I'd built the oak box, planted seeds with her parents, nudged her friends into silence, and now it was time to start showing my hand. Not all of it, just enough to make her sweat. I started with her precious image. To her, reputation was oxygen. She lived for Instagram likes and charity luncheons, the kind where she could pose with a glass of rose and caption it "Boss Babe Life." She didn't care about loyalty or truth, but God forbid someone think she was ordinary. So I clipped together a neat little package, screenshots of her messages, copies of her hotel receipts, and one photo of her and the contractor leaving the Burstone, her hand in his back pocket. I sent it, anonymously of course, to her boss at the real estate office. The timing was chef's kiss perfect. She was in the middle of an open house when her phone buzzed. I know because she called me immediately after, panic thick in her voice. "Someone's trying to ruin me," she cried. "They sent things to my broker." "Oh," I said calmly. "What kind of things?" "Private things." "Well, if they're private, how would your boss know they're true?" Silence. Then a sharp inhale. "You did this." "Did I?" I asked. "I've just been here making dinner." She hung up. That night, she came home late, face pale, hands shaking. She didn't yell, didn't even blame me outright. Instead, she sat at the table across from me and whispered, "Why are you doing this?" I set down my fork. "Doing what?" "You know what." I smiled. "Funny. That's what I asked myself when I found your texts." She pushed back from the table, stormed into the bedroom, and slammed the door. I finished my meal in peace. The next domino to fall was financial. Remember that second account I'd opened? By now, it was fat and happy. Every bonus, every overtime shift, every dollar that used to flow into our joint fund was now redirected. One morning, she checked the balance and froze. "Why is the account so low?" I sipped my coffee. "Maybe because someone's been draining it on hotel champagne and yoga pants?" Her jaw dropped. "You moved money without telling me?" "No," I corrected. "I moved my money. You've still got plenty of yours." She sputtered, grasping for words. That's financial abuse." I chuckled. "No, that's called being responsible. Something you wouldn't understand." She stomped off, slamming cabinets on her way. The oak box welcomed a new addition that night. A bank statement showing her sudden panic withdrawals. Evidence of recklessness, irresponsibility. It would look very compelling in front of a judge. But the crown jewel of this phase wasn't financial. It was personal. See, her contractor boyfriend wasn't the type to stay quiet forever. Men like him always want more. More time, more money, more validation. And sooner or later, they get sloppy. He got sloppy on a Tuesday. Sent her a text saying, "When are you going to tell him? I'm tired of sneaking around. I want you all to myself." I saw it pop up on the iPad. Screenshotted it instantly. That night, over dinner, I asked, "Do you think honesty is important in relationships?" She gave me a wary look. "Of course. I pulled out my phone, slid it across the table. Open on the screenshot. Her fork clattered to the plate. I think he's getting impatient, I said casually. You should probably manage his expectations better. She stammered, reaching for words that wouldn't come. I leaned back, sipping my wine. But don't worry. I'm not impatient. I can wait as long as I need to. She didn't sleep that night either. I did. Like a baby. By now, she was cornered. Her job was shaky, her parents suspicious, her friends silent, and her finances drying up. The oak box was nearly overflowing. One evening, she finally cracked. She stormed into the living room, eyes blazing, and shouted, I know you're trying to destroy me, but you won't win. Do you hear me? You won't. I muted the TV, looked her dead in the eye, and said softly, You already lost. You just haven't noticed yet. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. She stood there, trembling, before finally collapsing onto the couch. For the first time, she looked small. I made a mistake, she whispered. Can't we just move on? I tilted my head. Move on? Like nothing happened. She nodded, desperate. I smiled. You're right. We should move on. But not the way you think. And that was the truth. Because my plan wasn't just to catch her. It was to erase her safety net completely, strip away the illusion of control until all she had left was the realization that she'd played herself. The oak box wasn't just full. It was ready. And so was I. Because the cruelest revenge isn't yelling or leaving. It's making sure the person who betrayed you realizes, too late, that every step they took was on the path you laid for them. And she was about to take her last step. The morning after her mistake confession, she tried a new tactic, the performance of domestic bliss. She brewed coffee, fried bacon, even set the table with that chipped ceramic she usually mocked me for keeping. It would have looked wholesome if I hadn't known the act was thinner than the eggshells she tiptoed on. She slid me a plate and kissed the top of my head. See? I can do better. I looked at her, fork in hand, and smiled faintly. Better at what? Cooking? Lying. Her jaw tightened, but she didn't rise to the bait. She'd learned. Or at least she thought she had. The thing about people like her, they believe forgiveness is a resource you'll eventually cough up if they act sweet long enough. But forgiveness wasn't on my menu. I wasn't hungry for it. I was hungry for closure. My way. So I kept quiet and let her stew in her own effort. Meanwhile, I was planting seeds in new soil. I contacted her broker directly, not with threats, but with a question. Do you allow agents to use company resources for personal affairs? Then I attached 2 hotel receipts billed to the office card. He replied within an hour. We'll handle this internally. When she came home that evening, her face was pale, lips pressed tight. They suspended me. Pending review. I raised my brows. For what? You know for what? She snapped, eyes watering. You sent it. I leaned back in my chair. If it was baseless, why would they suspend you? She opened her mouth, closed it, stormed upstairs. That night, I added the suspension letter she left lying on the counter into the oak box. Another piece. Another domino. She tried turning her parents against me next. One Sunday dinner, she cornered them in the kitchen while I set the table. He's controlling me, she whispered. Loud enough for me to hear. He moved money. He watches me. He's paranoid. I walked in mid-plea, drying my hands on a towel. Is that what she told you? I asked. Her mother frowned. She says you're making things difficult. I placed the oak box on the dining table. For the first time in months, I opened it in front of her. Emails, photos, screenshots, a full-blown archive of betrayal. Her father's face went red. Her mother gasped. She lunged toward the box, but I held up a hand. Touch it, and I show them the rest. She froze, trembling. Her parents sat in silence as I calmly explained the evidence. No theatrics, no yelling, just facts, dates, receipts, patterns. By the end, her father shook his head, disgusted. We raised you better. She cried. Real tears this time. But not for me. For herself. I closed the box gently. This doesn't leave the house. Yet. But I thought you both should know what I've been dealing with. That was the night her safety net, her family, was cut. Cornered animals lash out. She was no different. A week later, she marched into the living room with divorce papers. Fine. If this is what you want, let's end it. But I'll take half. House, car, retirement. Half. I smiled. Half of what? She slammed the folder on the table. Half of everything. I slid it back toward her. You might want to check those accounts again. Her face paled as I explained, detail by detail, how I'd moved my money, frozen assets, and documented her reckless spending. Every dollar of champagne and hotel sheets traced back to her. "You can't do that," she whispered. I already did. Her lawyer called me a week later. We met. I handed him a condensed version of the oak box, just enough to outline infidelity, misuse of funds, and potential reputational damage. He looked sick. "This will ruin her." I smiled politely. "That's the point." When she found out what her lawyer had advised, settle quietly, walk away with nothing but the clothes in her closet, she screamed. She threw a vase at the wall, shattered it into 1,000 shards. I didn't flinch. "You'll regret this," she shrieked. I poured myself a drink. "No, you will." The cruelest revenge isn't public humiliation. It's private annihilation, the kind where the world doesn't cheer your victory because no one even knows there was a war. Only she does. I didn't post her screenshots online. I didn't mail copies to her friends. I didn't even expose her in court. That would have given her drama, attention, a story where she could cast herself as the tragic victim. Instead, I let silence bury her. The settlement left her with nothing. No house, no car, no access to accounts. Her job at the brokerage never came back. Her parents stopped answering her calls. The contractor? He lasted all of 3 weeks before realizing she wasn't bringing Range Rover money to the table anymore. One night, I drove past the shabby apartment she'd rented. Lights off, blinds crooked. Her car, dented and overdue for inspection, sat lonely in the lot. I didn't stop, didn't roll down the window, didn't say a word. Because the beauty of it was this: she'd done it all to herself. All I did was stand still while she ran headlong into the wall I'd built brick by brick. And the ending? The part no one expects? I never remarried. Never dated again. People asked why, and I'd smile. Because peace tastes better than revenge. But deep down, I knew the truth. Revenge had already been served. Cold, patient, precise. And every time I opened that empty oak box, the one I burned clean after it was over, I remembered the lesson she taught me. Never underestimate a quiet man. Because by the time you notice he's playing the game, he's already won.